So, as many of you know, Thad was so many things to so many people, changing lives, whether it was even within a month, a year, or decades. Sometimes it's some surprise to think that he just didn't pop into the world as the Thad I knew. And you tell stories about his younger Thad, I was like, it's just a smaller Thad I knew. Until I saw some pictures, I said, I don't recognize those bees. But we were lucky enough to have an old friend who's known Thad since before the mists of time, who's joining us here, a lifelong friend and brother. Alan, thank you for sharing.
I'm Alan Tebow. Thank you, David and Glenn, I know a lot of thank yous are owed here. Thank you for inviting me here to talk about Thad. So, who is Thad Engeling? It's so easy, I think, to experience someone, the person you think they are in the moment. For example, I, Alan Tebow, right now, I'm a bald guy with gray beard, standing here talking to you. For most of you, that's who I am. But that is timeless. All of us have different parts of this life that you now have. His whole life is really who he is. And I'm so glad everyone is here to share the different parts of the person that is, even the small miniature that David was talking about, who I will do my best to represent. I do not know a time in my life when I didn't think of Thad as an older brother. I owe this experience to the Engeling family. Thank you so much for letting me be part of your life and his life. You did such good things with Thad. Taught me so much growing up. A few things, which I will talk about. Thad was a mentor. He was a couple of years older than me. And you know, when you're 4 years old, that's a big deal, right? You know, he was like an older brother to me, but he was different than I was as an older brother. Because whereas my brothers learned from my mistakes, I learned from Thad's having his stuff together from the very beginning. Thad was a mentor of mine, just very intelligent, very patient. I was a hyperactive kid with a million questions, and he would sit there and he would answer them all. He was a teacher. In fact, he had a way of speaking when he was teaching you something, a certain way of articulating things, a certain way that I use with my kids, the people that I teach in my life. That Mary, I'm pretty sure, has a little to do with you. Mary had to teach me algebra. That was rough. Thank you for that. But you know, he was a huge just teacher, and he also taught me what it meant to have integrity. He taught me what it meant to work hard, dedicate yourself to what you were doing. Paul, I thank you for instilling that in your son. Some of it stuck with me. But I think if I were to characterize that and I, we created worlds together. we just had really had just such a massive imagination. And so we took the Star Trek, the Star Wars, the St. Thomas Episcopal School, the water skiing, the heights, near-death experiences, and we translated it all into just all these amazing things that we would dream, share, and write about. And it was incredibly rewarding to have gotten to share that with Thad growing up. Thad was there for me in a lot of pivotal moments in my life. He was the best man at my wedding. He helped me survive high school. He helped me survive my first year at University of Texas, although I didn't do well, so he probably should have worked harder. But I made it in the end. But he is the reason why I am a Longhorn. Sure, I'd even try at any other university. I wanted to go where Thad was. Eric went with me. He has such a huge part of who I am. I wouldn't be the person that I am without Thad in my life. I would be a different person, a less successful person. Every piece of success I have ever enjoyed in my life, I owe a little bit to Thad. And just having him as a friend and mentor. And I love you for that. So glad to be here to share a few thoughts with you today. And, Thad, I love you very much. I'm just grateful. Thank you.
So, after going through that crucible, what's called college, Thad fell into the goth scene and became a renowned DJ, and including his editor's repertoire now, so he only Thad can do collective music and wanting to discover every single band out there, what they had for breakfast at the studio that morning, and who their best friends were. Now, Thad typically, as he always did, wanted to break the stereotype that DJ is aloof, very central ego-driven, but Thad, who was behind the booth, wanted you to approach and was so interested in hearing what you had to say and what you wanted to know. Thad became a teacher and mentor and friend to anybody who approached him. One of those lucky people whose life he touched so deeply was our good friend Jason. Thank you, Jason, for also sharing.
I'll stop it quick. I'm not good at this kind of thing. I've spoken at one of these before, not long ago, but that was for a family member that was arguably a lot more close with Thad than I ever was with this family member, because I consider him to be. And anyway, I'm babbling. Sorry. I met Thad at, I think it was 1997. I was 17, maybe 18 years old, and I went to this nightclub called Atomic Cafe. A lot of you know him from before that, even at homes and other places. When I walked through that door, a buddy of mine brought me there because he was like, "Oh, if you like darker music or whatever, just come to this club with me." I was like, "Atomic Cafe? What is that, a restaurant?" No, it's a nightclub. They brought me there, and I walked in, and Thad was DJing at the time. I walked in, and immediately went up to the DJ booth because music was everything to me at that point, and it still is. And he was DJing, and he was wearing his corselet and a skirt and like just his fishnet shirt and everything, which is gorgeous, gorgeous man. And I was just like, wow, this is somebody that I shouldn't be talking to right now. He's just way too cool for me. And I started writing down everything that he was playing, everything. I wrote a list, and then the next day I went to one of the records, and I bought everything that I'd written down. Well, everything that I could find, because he was a discount contributor. He had a bunch of rarities. I mean, his CD collection was thousands of CDs, probably around 3,000 or 4,000. But I took notes. I apologize. Right after that, I started going to this record store that he worked at called 32 Degrees off of Guadalupe, and he just started introducing me to music through that because he bought for that store. And he helped manage that store. So every time I come in, he'd be like, okay, you buy this, you buy this, you buy this, you buy this. And I walk out with a stack of CDs with what I could afford with my meager earnings back then. He just basically gave me homework. And every day, every time I would go, it would just be a new homework assignment. I remember not long after that, I started DJing at Atomic, and I occasionally got the chance to spin with him. And he would bring his CD collection with him, not in books, but he had these cardboard boxes that he would line the CDs up in and make it easily flippable. Because if you know anything about keeping CDs, you know that CD books are just like the death of your CDs. So you never wanted to keep them in those. I didn't, unfortunately, follow that advice. My CD collection is completely ruined because of that. But I remember flipping through one of his part of his collection that he was bringing to spin one night. And I remember coming across a band called Frontline Assembly, and I had given them some lessons and stuff like that. And I was like, Thad, I just can't get into these guys. I don't like them. He's like, you're an insane person. You haven't been doing your homework. Go back and listen to it again. And so yeah, I did, and then I became obsessed with them because they were a very prolific band. They still are, and there are many side companies they have. But I could sit here and talk about music all day, but because of him, he was, as was already spoken, a teacher. He taught me everything I knew about music at that point. And obviously, I've learned a lot since then. I've known Thad since 97, so it's been babbling away. 25 years. Not long after that, Thad stopped really DJing at Atomic, and I stopped DJing at Atomic. And our good friend of ours, Cassandra, who's here, kind of scooped me up and said, hey, I've had DJing for this night that I'm putting on at a different nightclub. I want you to come DJ with him. And I was so incredibly thankful for that because it was an opportunity to actually work with him more. And that we DJed together for another year or so after that. And that was really the last chance I had to ever really spend with him on a regular basis. Like, I begged him after that. Begged him, you never come out and do it again. The occasional one it would happen. But around that time, tapes were still being used, right? Cassette tapes. And he had a collection of cassette tapes we made. It was mixtapes called Nile 1, Nile 2, Nile 3, Nile 4. There were compilations that he had put together, and he lent them to people. He lent a few to me, and I discovered how eclectic his taste was because of that. Because it wasn't just goth industrial, it was all over the place. Techno, anything really. And he, because of those tapes, I learned a lot more about, even more about just the different genres of music. And I put a lot of those songs that were on those tapes on the playlist that you guys were listening to outside. But him and Stephanie invited me to live with him a couple of years later, and then I got the full-blown realization that just how crazy music collector he was, because that's when I had access to his full collection. And every day I would just go through and pick a new CD. And one of the things I want to tell you guys about is that I picked out a few CDs to put in the display out here. Every single CD that he purchased, which was thousands, remember that, he cut out a little paper insert and he rated every song of every single album from a 1 to a 5, and he wrote that down and put that in the insert for the CD. That's how incredibly detail oriented he was. Oh, yeah, but probably the whole attic is full. Yeah, I snapped a picture the other day, and I was like, yeah, I remember this. I didn't realize it had grown that much, but anyway, I'll touch on one other thing. Over the past several years, Dad and I and a few other people would get together once every couple of months and have music listening nights. And these were so incredibly important because it was a way to introduce people to new music that we had possibly never heard before. Like, oh, I got this song, I want to introduce this, that you've never heard it before. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes it's wrong. But it was just a really fun time. It would be from 7:30 p.m. until sometimes daybreak. And we go all night long. And we would break in between, like every couple of hours to have cheese and wine and talk and stuff like that. And it was just a really, one of the most important things that I had with him. Because it was just a really amazing way to bond with him and just trade music and trade our love of music. So anyway, I could talk all day. I really appreciate you guys letting me sit up here and word vomit for a little bit. But one more thing, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't know any of the people I know in this room. And that's probably the biggest thing that I have to thank him for. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you. I'm going to excuse myself now.
So, through all of that and the evolutions, we never stopped loving some of the first things we loved, books. And one of the things that books brought into it was the wild imaginations that the role-playing games brought to them. And this, he continued to seek out new chances to explore the depths of his imagination, whether it's a DM tormenting his players with peep armies, or the carrot dragons, or being foiled by them. Possibly even more, he loved being on the other side of breaking out the stereotypes and playing characters that span across the horizon. One of his many, many partners in this exploration, both as a DM and a player, is Dane. Dane?
Hi, I'm Dan. I get kind of a trickier job here. As anybody who does play role-playing games knows, anybody who doesn't play does not want to hear your stories. There are fewer ways to alienate someone faster. This game moment the other night. Nobody cares. You can't give the context, and without it, it's bloody useless. That being said, I think the first I got started the first time I met Thad was at a party my wife Stina was throwing. They'd been friends for a while. She was trying to introduce me to the goth scene. Half of them didn't believe I existed at that point, just from the story she was telling me. And I showed up to my first goth party wearing an iridescent green pimp suit. And the look on Thad's face, I mean, you can imagine it, he was just delighted. And that just kind of set the tone for our relationship. As far as the gaming goes, I've been playing on and off with Thad various campaigns for, I've known him almost 30 years. I've been playing with him for 27, 28 years. He was actually in a game run by my wife. She was actually running it in our living room once a week. At the time, I was sitting in the other room playing World of Warcraft or something. And eventually, I just kind of went over there and was like, hey, you didn't invite me to play. Everybody else played. Got me to the game, and that was in the game as well. David kind of mentioned he liked DMing, but and as a DM, he was very creative. Like, he refused to do anything simple. Like, he would always post that. Whether it was, oh, it's a post-apocalypse, you're in, Florida, trapped in a bubble. Sure, why not? Or, it's this whole desert campaign, some weird alternate reality, or being invaded by fungus people. I mean, like, he never did anything by the book. And he loved it. He knew the rules, he loved playing around with them to keep his players on his toes, or when he was a player, keep on their toes. I've played in several campaigns that I ran. He's played in several of them. We both played in other people's. He never stopped being creative in his games. The first thing you got to know about his characters is he didn't like taking the limelight. He did not want to be in the spotlight. He wanted to be the support. He wanted to help everybody else and let other people shine. On occasion, we forced him into the spotlight, and he was very grumpy about it. He'd do it, but he did not like it. The other thing about his characters is every time he played a character, he tried to do something radically different than whatever he'd done in another game. And the only through line for his characters was that almost none of them had names you could pronounce or spell. It became a running joke after all. He named the character Toxoplasma Gandhi. And then the rest of us were just kind of looking at it like, I'm not shouting that out. Trying to give instructions in the book of fire. He named one of his characters, and I still can't pronounce it. Shell Ushembi. I don't know how to spell it. We don't know how to pronounce it. It was actually an in-game joke that he was harassing us all because nobody could say it correctly. And he did this stuff all the time. The last game he and I were in together that I was running, and again, this won't make any sense to anybody not a gamer, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway. He's the only person I've seen who could play a chaotic neutral character without being a giant jackass. Generally, anybody playing that kind of character is a troll. He figured out a way to make it fun and entertaining for the group. And that was really it. I mean, we've been playing at his house for years. He loved to host. He wanted to have people over, sitting around the table. just a bunch of minis around the table and just do some absolutely ridiculous things. David mentioned the carrot dragon. That was actually him trolling me because he knew my feelings on like salads. Why I don't like them. So he took a note of that, and then weeks later showed up with a monster entirely made of like carrots. Like he pulled this thing out of the fridge, and then he just kind of looked at us like, "Enjoy that ball." And that's what he loved about it. It was a chance to be social with people. It was a chance to develop esteem. And it was a chance to create memories with people of things that never happened. And we've got a lot of those. Basically, we're talking music for hours. I could bore you guys with campaign stories for at least 2 hours easily. And even people in here who've played with us are like, wait, I don't play. But it was a good outlet for him. It was a good way for him to be creative. And it was a good excuse to just be social with his friends. Sometimes several sets. He had at least 2 games going on in those separate gaming rooms. So wait, he's got another family. But it all worked out. And now we're trying to play without it. It's a giant bad shaped hole at that table. Initiative.
So I was continually always open to sharing interest in going deeper into things, joining book clubs, playing Magic, trying out soccer, running a Tough Mudder, which is just one of the most ridiculous things I ever saw him do. But in the last decade, he decided that he would try roller skating. Of course, he would do it on his own terms and in his own style. So if you're thinking about when you were a kid roller skating, you have no idea what he was doing on that floor. And this last act of exercise became the bedrock of his life, something that was deeply personal and important to him. He had days set aside for the roller skating days. He was always going out to them. While at the rink, as Dad was always wanted to do, he shared the skills that he had picked up, as well as picking up other skills from others. Again, always open to learning, always open to teaching. And out of there on the roller rink is how Beja became a good friend of his, as well as a roommate to Thad. Beja, you want to say a few words? Or?
Everybody. A lot of eyes. So it's going to take me a second. So my name is Phil. That scale. It's really bad. Decided some things about my life. That heard about it, he intervened, he said, hey, you want to come live with me? And I had spoken to him a couple of times. I've seen him skate. It's not just like, so, but I thought it was cool. You guys are good.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm very introverted anyway, and so talking in front of people, something that. So that's part of it. So basically, so yes, I talked to him about a time or two. He seemed pretty cool, and so I was like, okay. And one of the first things I had to ask him is, "Are you in love with me? I need to know." And he didn't like cool off. He didn't want some people stuff. He said, "First question." Because I told him my experience. I told him I had moved in with some guy before, and he thought I was going to what I did cause a really lot of problems. Sure, but I wasn't. And he took it in. That's one thing that I would say love or loved about him. His tremendous capacity to absorb, to understand, to listen. Not necessarily agree, but to be present. Understand. I just turned 49, and the art of listening is a lost art form these days. It's just the way things are. So I found that attractive. And then I was really in that situation anyway. And so after talking, I said, okay, take it out. I will live with perfect strength and be worse than what's already happening. And 3 weeks later, I would decide that I want to go ahead and spend 2.5 years in college because they said they like me and I think I like them. And he's like, love, and so why not move cross country when you're full of emptiness? He didn't understand that. But the thing is like, there was such a connection. It was flawless. It was organic. And everything was by mistake. Nothing was tried. It just when it came to Saturdays, the depth of his psyche and who he was. There's layers there. He's like, no. You're so right, you're so bad, and so this. And so, but in a short time, it just accidentally. It started with skating because, he's got this thing and I've got this really can't mess with it, and it's a contrast. It's a contrast because we on the skateboard and he oh my God, black guy, he's black, I'm black. And yet we have nothing to do with each other, but we are. We can tell we're somehow related, we're in sync, and he's going, and he's doing it. Some things that are really hard to people that haven't done it, or have that level of connect with the body that I've established at my age. And it's amazing that I understood that, and that was our end. And in a short time, I found out, like 3 weeks, I used the elbow. It was a mistake. Just like I used the word brother. It was a complete mistake. I said it, I was talking about brother. I was like, oh. It's like you have gas and you just let a little bit out. It was weird to hear. And he looked at me with a peculiar look. I was like, okay, so I'm and he said, just as clear and smooth as I had said, and there was no distortion, there was no hesitation. It's just so sure in who he was. And so we began to go on all these finite details of our psyche. Excuse me, no. And it just happened very quickly, and all of a sudden, I love you, Thad. I love you. I was trying to expressing all the layers of me and all the things and all the pages inside of me and all my nicknames and everything. And, you know, I said, you know, I told him many times he's a shining example of me. I told him that many times. He doesn't believe me. I told him that many times, and I believe it. And so when I said that, I said, brother, and I say, like, you're a shining example of me. I love you. It's such a tender moment. It's held and suspended by itself. And then one of the pages in the back is, kiss him! No! No! It's bad! It's never! It's never! But see, I'm so gutted by this. It's because it's like once in a lifetime. I'm not your man, your guy, your girl. And he was my it. We had decided, like, you know, forget everyone else. It's just gonna be us. And that was cool. He had all my sins. He was chronologically my he would, in case something happened to me, he would be able to tell my story without any cruelty. That's who he was to me. He died for my sanity, that close. Reminded that we're all these things. Music, one of the last things that we did was our music listening night, and I was trying to impart to him how music affects me physically, and that I might operate on the autistic spectrum. I'm pretty sure I'm some levels I'm always popular. And we explained so many different things. And being back from the body so much, we were able to start to explore that. I've been so busy. I've been so busy with my work. And I have a new wife, a new baby in Dubai. They're counting on me to get things right. And they're counting on me to do stuff. There's no time to play. There's no time to do this. I gave them what I could. And then when I found out this was happening, I did everything I could. I did everything I could. There's no mistake that he knows I did not make. So I did have notes and stuff. But it's I'm having issues with my in the middle of writing an outline. I literally forgot I was going to say what I was going to say. So I understand. And we're all struck with it. See all so, I'm talking to the Thad Engeling. And I guess it would start with family members. When I was in Egypt, I was there for 2.5 years. Just during my life, I got in trouble. I got sick, really sick, and no one could help that. Really sick. Nobody could help me. That helped me get back to the U.S. He did. And I said, Dad, you are an angel. He said, I don't believe in this. I said, you're for the side of prerequisite this matter, so. You should have. You should have. And see, I'm trying to, by example, school the layers that you're operating on. What was ironic is that it was very audible about where he stood as far as his belief systems. And yet, through his life, he was propagating the same kind of things that he said that which is selflessness, which is time, which is charity, which is compassion, which is honesty, which is integrity. One of the things that this has done for me is it has really caused me stridently to look inward. I have no choice. I won't go into a lot of detail, but I'm just going to tell you, good folks, that there's a struggle inside of me. And it's taken a community to get me to this point right here, today. And so what I would say to all of you is, if you have that person, if you have that thing, if you have that secret, if you have that thing in the closet that it's got you and you don't want to deal with, I highly suggest that you take the steps and the time to let yourself enough to explore these things. Because what they do to you and what they do to other people, you can't imagine. You can't imagine how it can change your life, how it can change your personal life, how it can change your mind, how it can change your heart, how it can change everything. You can't imagine what it can do to you. To the point where I'm really considering going to happier times in my life. Part of that is religion. I mean, it is what it is, and if I'm still redeemable, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not a loser. And that, if you're listening, I implore your human kindness to please find it within your structure, within to help release me from this thing. I love you, brother. That's you.
So that is constantly define all the roles that people would want to put him into, whether it's the DJ role or gaming or anything else, but he would keep going into new environments with that same enthusiastic honesty and warmth, and just sort of make that new environment his. And this is very short between, but we also have a close friend of his and a close friend of ours that also seemingly is everyone's friend, Andre. Man of so many words and so many people. Please come up and say something.
Tall. And old people. This is appropriate. That was also very tall, if you're Bolivian or younger. I took notes because I didn't know how this was going to go. Thank you. Thank y'all for coming out, Dave, for organizing, Ben. So many of y'all for sharing stories. For the people who weren't here, for sharing stories and pictures. There's a lot of different moments in Thad's in life in decades, and there's people I don't even know. And that touched so many. And I want to just start off with thank y'all for taking a few hours to come out here on a beautiful Sunday. Way more sunlight than Thad probably enjoyed. And unless he was out on his pond, it was great. I've known Thad for a quarter of a century. He introduced me to the goth scene. Spent endless nights playing Magic and D&D or dancing. He was the only long-haired groomsman I had at my wedding with my wife. And he's known my twin daughters since they were born. Like so many of us today, he had a deep and lasting impact. An impact more than I think he really would have intellectually thought he did or emotionally allowed himself to believe. These past few weeks have been bittersweet. So many of us have been able to share stories and memories of our times with Thad. And it's been amazing. I have to chuckle about it, because Thad would have been the first one to perfectly quote one of his favorite books, The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe by Stephen Novella, available by the book dropship thing that they put together, with the quote that memories are flawed from the moment we construct them, but they're also not stable over time.
Each time we recall a memory, we're actually reconstructing and updating. So I'd like to take a few moments and reconstruct some memories with you. Because I'd like to be linked that. And we're going to talk about why, as many of others, and I think they read some of my notes, because there's themes to that, why he is so dear to each of us. That was a social magnet. Gravity intense, probably like a black hole. I first met him with Belen when we went to this tiny little hole in the wall Vietnamese place called Me Conquer on 6th Street, back before it's the 6th Street, which is now. But we got invited in to have lunch there, and I have these vivid crystal memories of his long fingers, his delicate, like he should have been a surgeon fingers, just shredding up basil leaves and bamboo shoots. And before that, I mean, I've had Vietnamese before, but I was like easy, like vermicelli bowl guy, right? You know, this is the intro levels. He's like, oh no, we're diving into pho. I was like, wait, what? Mispronounced. I'm probably still mispronouncing it, but we tear it up and throw all the sauce in there, and it's quintessential because he introduced me to culinary delights, Ethiopian food, eating with our hands again. There's a theme, and to so many other parts. Those lunches led to getting to meet the goth scene, dancing at clubs, so very many crazy themed parties and shenanigans. I met the new subculture, the goth scene that was pivotal for my life in the 20s. I came from college, went to T2, but back then I was a hippie, environmental, long hair, a little bit of black was my metalhead days, but I didn't understand all this. And he brought us in and we started to hang, and it was a social group that had an aesthetic that's dark and luxurious. It's like the richest velvet. There was a lot of velvet. And I love watching them twitch because I bring in the tie-dye. And be like, and I got to meet these many people. That was the cornerstone back then of that scene. But I still had my own world, so I'd have parties. And I like to throw chaos into the world, so I invite everyone. And there'd be different groups of people from all the different scenes, from, in the beginning, environmental consulting, and then college, metalheads, and then eventually firefighters. And you'd see people, and eventually I'd always social butterfly around during the party. I'd look over, check on, see how people are doing. And invariably, that would be butted up somewhere, talking with someone who, not for 1,000 years, you would think they'd even say hello to each other. They're like diametrically opposed. And then they are having the deepest of conversations. He would listen, he'd engage. He wasn't just waiting for you to stop talking so he could tell you his ideas. He truly listened and engaged. If you were willing to think and could explain why you held the beliefs you did, it was till like the sun came up, you'd be sitting there talking. Now, he wouldn't let you be a lazy thinker. You tried, well, you know, they said, you'd be like, who is it? I read it was written. Well, where? You try that number on him, he'd be like, who do you? The book, the author, the date, the scientifically peer-reviewed research that proved it. It was amazing. It made me more analytical in my thinking, and made me a better person and converser, and just helped in that aspect. Thad was disciplined and self-aware. A lot of us kind of go through life reactive. He wasn't. He was proactive. He always knew that his job was sedentary. He did a lot of coding, a lot of mental, intellectual things. It's like, I need to be physical. Make sure I'm fun. So we started off trying to play soccer at Hangover United. Not probably the most physically type things, but we had a great time. We burned off a lot of hangovers. We were not competitive. It was an American fuel, but it was amazing. And that kind of waned. So then he's like, wait a minute, that part of my life isn't going, so what should I do? So he did research. He found the Tough Mudders. And he trained for them. He's like, hey, Andre, you're doing a lot of stuff with firefighting. This is what I'm going to do. I'm like, that sounds crazy. But he started training. He would meet people because that's what he did. And then we did all these Tough Mudders, and then eventually that kind of waned or what have you. He got into skating. But like they said, I mean, it's not skating like the rest of us. I mean, we had fun. We'd go out there. My kids were skating, speed skating. We'd go fast and go straight. We try to go faster, and eventually there's a wall that stops us, and then you can go straight and very short, and then you go straight and longer faster. No, he would plan, and he'd set himself a regime. And I remember talking to him. I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna go out skating. You gonna be there?" He's, of course, because it's on the calendar, and he's regimented. And I'm like, cool. I want to try. Keep on talking about the skating backwards. Oh yes, I'll show you. And he would teach. But he also had his own lessons, his own homework, Jason. He gave himself homework. And he would have certain things he was going to work on that night. Like all he did. And he leveled up. Oh, he levels up in all sorts of things. And he leveled up in that. And it was a few years, and we'd go and skate again. And he was different. I thought it was the epitome of grace. Other good skaters probably had a different characterization of his movement, but it was amazing. There for a while, especially during COVID, but before that, he knew he was getting a little bit more of an introvert than he used to be early in our training. So he, of course, analyzed, was aware, made a plan. He bought season tickets to that. That's where it goes in, because he knew he was a trait I share with him. I like to call it economically, fiscally aware. My wife says it's a little bit cheap sometimes. But he knew if he bought two, he would always use them. It's not like he's going to let it go past because he's already purchased them. So he started going to Austin Playhouse. And he would bring people. And he introduced us to Austin Playhouse. And we bought systems. And we would bring other people, and he would meet his parents, and we'd go out and have dinner and Ethiopian food was culinary. And it was every time he was working to make himself better, he'd bring us along for the ride, and we'd be better. And we'd spread that, and it was the ripples of that. And his effects continue. After you get to talk to him for just a few minutes, and it's so obvious that he was fiercely intelligent. His knowledge went through all the sciences, biology to like just really off-the-wall theoretical physics. I don't use my biology much anymore in my adult life, but he would bring it up, and he's like, hey, let's write this great book on evolution. What do you think of this? And I'm like, oh, okay, let's go back in the Rolodex and think about that. And he would push you with me. He loved philosophy, the horror movies. And he shared that passion with my wife and my daughter. They like all the horror movies. I thought I did too. First ones to tell you I don't like some of them and I'm really a poser, but they would go and
but I can only get in the comments.
see? We all have our flavors, and he just had all the flavors. He had music, so much music. I gave homeworks there. I was never inclined. My brain doesn't work like that. I just hit the easy button. I'm like, hey, Dad, what should I listen to? And it's kind of like, not the CDs, I'm not there. It's just like the Spotify type thing. So my playlist was there, and we'd go over and we'd play games at his house, and we'd be role playing. And he always had music going in the background. We'd go in, and I was like, oh, what's that? And he doesn't even have to look it up. I'm always like, oh, it is the, no. He knew it, and he'd share, and I'd pull it out, and I'd add it to my, I need to listen to this. His intellect and his encyclopedic knowledge was so much of that instant that I got to talk. I think what I'll finish up on and what I loved was his ninja, it's hidden, goofy, just fun joy of life. It would be like when he takes a bite of food that is unexpectedly good, or if there was like one of your crazy mechanisms for magic that he didn't expect and would pop. When he brought out with great flourish the carrot dragon. He would, his facade is, well, let's think about this, would slide off his head. And that smile would just spread across his entire face, and he'd laugh, he'd giggle. I swear to God, I think we had at least 2 or 3 occasions of a titter. But that intellect with a childlike joy for those moments in life are the ones that I'll continue to remember and share and try to emulate. I've known him for over half my life, my children's, their whole life. He will forever be an influence on our lives, and I hope we all carry that forward and let the ripples keep on going through and taking that which we all value so much forth to others.
I'll just leave it down there. So through all of this, the reason why we've done here, we do all this. Thad would always reach back to the young girl he met when she was born. Over the later years, his connection to his niece Esther grew and grew. He used to light up so much every time he spoke with her. So I'm very excited for very excited for every step of her journey through life. So I'm honored to have her speak with us.
As David said, I'm Esther, and I was Thad's niece. Couldn't even start. Yeah, I couldn't even start without crying. I can't actually remember a time before knowing Uncle Thad. The earliest memories I have are him visiting at some, Thanksgiving or Christmas or other. Even though there were periods of time I didn't get to see him often, we always had a special kinship. We both shared a deep love of reading. And even up to the last time I saw him, he frequently gifted me books for no particular reason other than I would really enjoy reading them. Along with my mom, we also shared a penchant for loving proper grammar. There was one Thanksgiving where someone said something made him feel nauseous. The way you know where this is going, right? The way my dad describes the moment right after is that he saw my mom, Uncle Thad, and I all tense up, and we all looked really uncomfortable until Thad couldn't stand it anymore and told them the correct word to use was actually nauseated. For a while as a teenager, I even adopted his wardrobe and wouldn't go anywhere unless I was in black jeans and a black t-shirt. I didn't even consciously realize I was imitating him at the time. I just thought it looked cool. I'd always admired my Uncle Thad, but as an adult, we became really close in the last few years, particularly when I moved back to Austin. I was so excited to be able to see him on a regular basis, and we did. Every other month or so, we would share dinner and long conversations. I could talk about him, or I could talk with him about anything and everything. I feel like y'all all looked at my notes too, because I learned so much from him, and he always made me feel like my thoughts and opinions mattered too. And again, everybody talks about music, right? Years after I talked about Mumford and Sons, he told me he listened to a couple of their albums and said that he really liked it. As an almost 30-year-old, when he told me this, I was so touched that he would even try a recommendation from a college student because, 19-year-old's music taste can be a little hit or miss, right? That's the kind of person he was. He shared so much of himself in so many avenues over his life. His love of music, his appetite for books and learning new things, his restaurant and food recommendations. He would hang out with me and my friends at the occasional birthday or other odd event, and I'll never stop being grateful that he shared his friends with me too. Nothing will ever replace his absence in my life. I'll never get to talk with him about the last Wayfarer's book. I'll never get to tell him he's going to be a great uncle again. You won't get to see my children grow older, or teach them how to play a D&D, or give them books like he did me. But knowing and loving Uncle Thad, let the profound work of my life will carry with me forever. I'll always be grateful for his example of cultivating curiosity for the world, as well as humility to learn new information and change previously held biases and assumptions. I'm grateful for the time we had together, even if it will never feel like enough. I'm grateful that the last time I saw him, he played with my son, and we said, "I love you" at the door. When thinking about what I wanted to share with y'all about Uncle Thad, I've struggled with how to close. Given the circumstances of his death, anything I say feels incomplete. The last thing I'll share that I'm grateful for is that he knew what he meant to me. The most important things weren't left unsaid. All I can hope for is that each and every one of you see this moment as an opportunity for renewal. Make time for your friends and family, take lots of pictures together, and don't put off telling people how much you love and admire them, because you never know when will be your last opportunity.
This time, we'd like to open the floor up if anyone who wants to share a memory or event, or if you'd like to come up and share a thought, you can. Once we go, that we'll have one last speaker and that. So feel free to.
Sorry, somebody set the microphone a little low. Give me a second. I don't have anything prepared, so I'm going to just be brief and to the point as best I can. My name is Frederick. I've known Thad since 1996. The thing about his death that shocked me was learning that he had confidence issues, because I never saw him that way. This was a man who would dress up in Doc Martens, a pencil skirt, a corset, a fishnet top, and black fingernails and long black hair, and then would walk down 6th Street through a crowd of drunken fraternity brothers. How could this man have confidence issues? I don't know. I saw him, and I just saw him as somebody who was so confident in his own skin that nobody could tell him that he could not be who he wanted to be, who he was. And when I met him, I was not much of a grown-up, and I was very angry, I was very judgmental, and I saw him, and I saw how he was who he wanted to be. And I looked at myself and my lack of confidence, and I saw him and said, that's who I would, the kind of person I would like to become. And there's a lesson I learned from that. It's that there really are a lot of ways to be. As long as you're not hurting anybody else, there are a lot of ways to look, there are a lot of ways to act, there are a lot of ways to think. And go with a stranger. I mean, just look around at the room right now and the amazing mix of people and different types of people who were brought together by this one amazing human that we were all lucky enough to know. All of us, I think, the people here are a testament to the wonderful, wonderful person that Thad was and that I still endeavor to be. Thank you.
I didn't really think I was going to say anything. That was like a second older brother, much nicer older brother. I think, I'm sure it's all been a struggle for all of us to think about how to react. I think I've included two ways of reacting. When we're doing a lot of it right now, we're remembering him. And I have a lot of different memories of him in different times that I will share. But I think the other thing is to emulate him. He was a very positive. I think, he was 5 years older. And, I met him when I was born or shortly thereafter. He probably wasn't in the room. But, it's quite possible that he changed my diapers at some point. I don't know for sure. He never humiliated me by telling me that, or I chose to forget. But he was 5 years older. And then there was my brother and his sister kind of in between us. But, growing up with the four of us, my younger brother came a bit later, we would get into lots of shenanigans. And I think in my selective memory, I think that, I never really felt like an outsider. And I think that, being that much younger, you would think that I was like, I think Alan would pick on me. Lisa would pick on me, but I never really felt like that. I always felt like, he was welcome, and he was always willing to take the time to share, what he had to say or listen to what I had to say. And I think, when I got older, when I came to University of Texas, Alan had just got married, so he had no time for any of us. And I was able to look to Thad. He invited me into, to hang out with him and Troy. And I didn't think I was going to drink in college. Somehow I thought that was going to be possible, but that changed quickly. But I think the feature that I noticed right away is they played great music. And they actually let me pick the music, even though my first selection was Def Leppard. So they allowed it, and I felt welcome. It was, and I think from then I was like, you know what? That's, even though I'm 5 years younger, I'm welcome here. I feel good to be around him, and of course he's always been somebody learn from and listen to. And he also listens. And I think what struck me, I feel like I kind of encountered him in different phases of my life. Like I was at University of Texas, then I moved to California, moved to France, then came back to Austin for a year and a half. And then I met a lot of you who are here today in this year and a half period before I moved again to Australia. So I keep catching him in these different windows. And I think in that time, he was, Mr. Popular, like just very different, right? He had a massive goth scene. And while I loved a lot of the music, I was definitely a tourist in that scene. He never made me feel bad about that. I was always welcome at the parties. I would at least find a black shirt. As of today, I had to go buy this today. But yeah, never did I feel unwelcome to be around. And then we started doing these music nights. And I think those nights for me were pretty special. I mean, to the point where I would burn CDs to share with the group, thinking, well, my music is that important. Yes, I need to give everyone a memorabilia. And, I know, well, so I would share it. I even design the cover and have track listings. And here you guys, this is my great selection tonight. Even though, my music taste is definitely divergent, but I think our kind of mantra or how we ran it is nothing was off limits. And it turns out most of the time we liked 99% of what everyone played. I learned 20 years later that I did play some stuff he didn't like. He didn't like Modest Mouse, but didn't share that with me until the last music night we had each other. So I was like, oh yeah, we always like each other's music. Like, no, not that Modest Mouse. But then I moved to Australia, and then I didn't move back to Austin. I moved to San Francisco, and I've been there ever since. But we're both software engineers, and when I would come back to Texas, we would do music nights whenever I visited Texas. I always took it for granted that was something that might happen anytime I came to Texas. And that was something always to look forward to. But I think with the job, it's suddenly I realized we have the same profession. This 5-year younger person, like we're in the same industry. We have a lot of the same problems, and we start talking about it. And I remember, if you know me, I have lots of opinions. And I developed a lot of opinions about my career, how management should behave, how organizations should be structured, blah, blah, blah. And I'm telling him what I think. But he's 5 years ahead of me in his career. I'm not really expecting him to listen. But he comes back to me later. He's like, some of the things you said, I put into practice, and that made a difference. I'm like, what? You were listening to my giant talk? That blew me away. And it just kind of made me think about just how, he's not just very smart, but he's also very humble. He knows everyone has something to offer and is willing to listen. Trying to think my bad. I think the thing, coming here this weekend after all of this, it did, I think we've all been a little bit stunned and not sure how. I was at his house yesterday looking through all that stuff. I found, Thad has, I don't know, 5,000 CDs. I don't know, that's probably an underestimate. 10,000, I don't know. He has walls of CDs filling his attic at this point. And I was kind of scanning through, looking for something, that we shared. And I go into the J's and I find the 4 burned CDs that I made during our music class with the ratings. So, find out, what was the stuff you didn't like? Anyway, I'm really gonna miss them. So I will remember and I will emulate. Thank you.
I am. I don't have anything big to say. My name is Brenda Daly, but most people just call me B because we chopped my first name in half. When I got the news, I was trying to remember the first time I met that. And it finally came to me that I knew him for 3 years online, I think, before I ever connected who this person I chatted with was at the post, which is not actually uncommon because I did the same thing with Jason. I think the thing I'm going to remember most is how amazing it was to just sit and watch him and other people bounce their evidence and their ideas. I mean, 2 a.m. philosophy chat sessions are one thing, but when it's Thad and Wiley and Rod and, and so many others, literally like 8, 9 people, not necessarily arguing, but debating with evidence. Like, it just blew me away. But I think the thing that I'm really going to remember most is that if you know me for a while, you know, like, hot mess would be a really kind way to describe who I was 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And he never made me feel unwelcome. And I would see people that are like, oh, it's her, but not him. He was always just happy to welcome me. And so I just want to say I'm very thankful. And I want to say that I hope he and Wiley were wrong and they're having a nice, strong dream to talk about some good.
Thanks so much. We'll have one last speaker to share a few memories and experiences with us. Afterwards, we are going to fill up the chairs over here, so we're going to exit the room, end up setting up some food, some appetizers, little small stuff, and our meals as well. For our last speaker, ask Glenn.
Short people. Fuck. Thad really, really loved to swear. I'm a bit of a school marm when it comes to swearing, especially in social settings or at work. But Thad swore with a creativity and glee, with an unapologetic, purposeful panache that left no doubt that he meant it with all of his heart. And that always made me giggle. And he took extra delight in the moments when I unleashed a string of swear words in a particularly irritating situation, which of course encouraged me to do it more. So I'd go home with a potty mouth after living with him for 3 months. So since he left us, I've been dropping the F-bomb left and right. And I feel like every time I do, he gets a victory point. I met Thad 25 years ago at lunch with a friend, as Andre mentioned. And it turned into weekly lunches all summer. And finally he declared that we really needed to meet all of his friends. And then they threw this little party at New Year's. We should come visit. That moment, attending funeral party, it was my 4th in the road. It changed my whole life. That opened the door to finding my tribe, and the next 2 years were filled with this deep sense of belonging I had never found before. I was 25, 24. Friendships that left an indelible mark on who I would become. I even met my partner at his house. Years later, we returned to become seasonal roommates, and for the last 18 years, we've built a home with Thad, slowly creating the oasis that he came to deeply love. Did you know that he accidentally became a birder? I mean, it's my fault. During one visit, we added sunflower seed feeders, and I've been doing wildlife photography, and we tell him all about the birds that were in his backyard. But we reassured him, like, you can just take the feeder down. You don't need to keep it up. It's maintenance. Don't worry about it. But he came to really love it, and he started sending me photos of birds that I was missing in the summer when I wasn't there. And then he started working from home, and his morning routine became that he'd start the coffee, and then he'd go put the bird food out, and the squirrel food, and the fish food, all the things. And that feeder collection grew, and so did his delight in all the birds that visited. We had counted more than 40 species in all that were in his backyard. And then he called me one summer day. He said, "Glenn, you're never going to believe it. I have black-bellied whistling ducks with 14 ducklings in my pond." And I said, "Did you ID them, Thad?" Really? But like everything else, his intellectual curiosity found a new topic and he dove right in. And he loved it. I've heard people muse that facing death can be bleak and hopeless. But standing here today and listening to all of you and all the stories in the last weeks that you've shared, Thad's woven himself into the tapestry of your lives. He's lived a life that deeply touched so many. He changed lives. He created safety. I heard that again and again, and it really resonated with me. He opened doors of curiosity and understanding. He was just being himself. He wove himself so deeply into my life that he's always going to be right here with me. And with you, in that book that he recommended that you love, in that song that he introduced you to, in that restaurant that he loved that made him go, nom, nom. In the million ways he shared himself with all of us. As I navigate a future without him, this is what I try to hold on to. That changed the whole course of my life numerous times. And I'm so grateful for the threads that he's infused into my tapestry. Thank you for coming to share these moments and your love for him. I'm blown away by a room filled with people from so many different parts of his life. And I can't imagine a better way to honor him than to just come and be together and meet each other and form new connections and discover how much all of us have in common with each other, because Thad, he knew how to pick them. So thank you.